My name is Emily. I'm 36 years old, living in Colorado. My life took an unexpected turn one rainy afternoon. My husband, Michael, 39 at the time, my companion since college, left me forever in a car accident on the highway. The news hit like an icy knife to the heart, shattering everything I once believed in. That night, the police knocked on my door close to midnight. I opened it, still expecting Michael to come home late after work, but instead saw two stern faces in uniform. They didn't need many words, just one short sentence. "We're sorry, but your husband didn't make it." My body went numb, my legs gave out, and I had to cling to the doorframe just to stand. For days afterward, I drifted like a ghost. Rain pounded outside, wind lashed the porch, dragging me back to the image of Michael swallowed by a dark, wet road. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every object in the house became unbearable. The coffee mug he used, the clothes still hanging in the closet, the muddy shoes left by the door. Passing them squeezed my chest with pain. They say time heals, but for me, time stood still. Each morning I woke to an empty side of the bed where Michael's warmth once was. Each night I lay in silence, my heart beat loud in the dark. Even silence terrified me because it reminded me he was truly gone. Family and friends tried to comfort me, but words like "you have to be strong" only pushed me further away. None of them could understand what it meant to lose someone I'd spent nearly 20 years with. I withdrew, stopped answering calls, avoided visits. I even kept my own family at a distance. My younger sister Laura sent dozens of messages, but I never replied. My parents worried, but their presence only felt suffocating. Some nights, I sat on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, questioning whether life had any meaning left. Wedding photos, vacation snapshots, birthday pictures of him still hung on the walls like cruel reminders of my helplessness. I wanted to cry, but the tears had dried up. All that remained was an emptiness nothing could fill. I remembered Michael as full of energy, always optimistic, teasing me when I was grumpy. He loved his job as a civil engineer, but still took me hiking every weekend. He once promised we'd travel through all the western states together, but now it was only an unfinished dream. The pain wasn't just losing a husband, it was losing the future we had drawn together. On the day of the funeral, I wore a plain black dress and stood still beside the dark wooden casket. Friends and coworkers filled the church, tears streaming down every face. I stood there numb, the bells tolling like they were tearing the air apart. When the casket was lowered, the sound of dirt hitting the lid made me tremble, my hands clutching the pew. My world cracked open. There was nothing left to hold on to. From that day, the house once full of laughter became hollow. I all but disappeared from daily life. Neighbors knocked to check on me. I stayed silent. Friends invited me for coffee. I found excuses. Even my mother's calls wore me down. I saw pity in everyone's eyes, and I just wanted to vanish. As time dragged on, I sank deeper into the dark. Losing Michael meant losing myself. I was no longer the cheerful Emily, no longer the woman who made plans for the future. I had become a shadow wandering in a silent house, letting the days slip away without meaning. My phone rang on a Thursday afternoon while I sat quietly in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea. The screen lit up with a name I least expected, Laura, my 32-year-old sister. We had never been close, only exchanging polite words on holidays. My hand trembled as I hovered over the answer button, but finally I lifted the phone to my ear. "Emily, next week we're throwing Ethan's first birthday party. You have to come. Everyone in the family really wants you there." Laura's voice carried both excitement and a hint of unease. The mention of Ethan, my nephew, made me pause. He had been born more than a year ago, yet I had never held him, never even seen his little face. While I was drowning in grief, I had missed every moment of his early life. The thought left me heavy with guilt. But almost instantly, another fear crept in. Me. In my dark dresses and shattered heart, did I belong in a room full of laughter and joy? I almost refused, but Laura seemed to anticipate it. This could be your chance to heal. I know Michael would want you to find happiness again. Her words pierced my chest. I sat in silence, then nodded, even though my throat felt tight. All right, I'll come. The next day, I drove into the city and stopped at a jewelry store. After minutes of hesitation, I chose a sterling silver cutlery set engraved with Ethan's name, a gift I believed could stay with him throughout his childhood. As the clerk wrapped it in shimmering paper, a strange calm came over me. My hands felt steadier, my heart a little braver. Maybe this really could be the first step toward mending the broken ties of family. Sunday arrived. I slipped into a simple navy dress and drove to Laura's suburban home. From the driveway, I could already hear music, laughter, and the playful shouts of children. When the door opened, the scent of cake and flowers rushed out, revealing a scene that made me freeze. Pastel balloons filled the ceiling, a long table piled high with colorful gifts, guests chatting with glasses of red wine in hand. In that sea of joy, I felt like an intruder. "You made it!" Laura appeared, hugging me quickly. She wore a striking red dress, makeup flawless, her smile dazzling. Her eyes darted instantly to the silver gift bag in my hand, lighting up with excitement. "Oh, a gift for Ethan? You're so thoughtful. Let me put it on the table." I forced a smile and handed it over. Laura whisked it away, leaving me standing alone amid the lively crowd. I looked around, the music thundering, the laughter swelling. Each sound made me feel smaller, more out of place. An hour later, just as the party was at its peak, Laura suddenly picked up a microphone and tapped her glass. The sharp sound sliced through the chatter, pulling every gaze toward her. I lifted my head, watching her beam with confidence. "Everyone, thank you for coming to celebrate Ethan's birthday. But today, I also have something very important to share." The room fell into silence. My palms tightened. A chill ran through me. Laura's eyes locked onto mine, gleaming cold. "There's a secret I've kept for a long time. I can't hide it anymore. Ethan's real father isn't my husband. It's Michael Emily's husband." The world spun. I remembered that time vividly. It was when I was enduring painful infertility treatments, convinced Michael was by my side. All along, while I struggled alone, they had been living a secret love story behind my back. The sound of my world collapsing echoed in my chest. The room turned suffocating after Laura's declaration. I stood frozen as whispers and piercing stares cut into me. No one came to my defense, not even my parents, who lowered their heads in silence. Laura, still gripping the microphone, continued slicing me with her words. "That's why Ethan has the right to inherit part of Michael's estate. Michael left over $200,000 in savings and a house in suburban Denver. Ethan, his son, deserves half. Emily, you can't keep everything to yourself." I lifted my head and glared at her. "You dare fabricate this on your own son's birthday? Do you want to turn the whole family into a circus in front of your friends?" My voice shook, but my fury bled through. Laura shrugged, a mocking smile curling on her lips. "Fabricate? You can think that if you want, but evidence doesn't lie." She raised her phone and swept it across the room. The screen showed intimate photos, then sweet messages between her and Michael. My blood rushed to my head, my body trembling as if drained of all strength. I heard guests murmuring, "Unbelievable. So that's the truth?" I turned desperately toward my parents, begging with my eyes. But my father only sighed, his tone heavy. "Emily, accept reality. Laura told us long before." My mother dabbed her tears with a handkerchief, unable to meet my gaze. In that moment, I realized I was utterly alone. I stumbled back, my legs unsteady. Sounds crashed in my ears, but inside my head only one question roared: why? Why would Michael, the man who swore to protect me, betray me in the cruelest way? Why would my own family side with a liar? Laura stepped forward, like a victor savoring her triumph. You can resist, but the law is on my side and Ethan's. If you're wise, you'll agree to split the estate right now. Otherwise, she paused, eyes glinting with challenge. I already have a lawyer. Her words thickened the air with dread. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away under a storm of curious, pitying stares. Behind me, Laura's fake sobs rang out, sharpening the image of me as a defeated woman. I left the party, gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands, and drove into the night. The endless road stretched like a black hole, swallowing all hope. Back home, I collapsed onto the sofa, the room pitch dark except for the ticking clock. My eyes wandered. Michael's half-empty mug, his coat still on the hook, his shoes by the door. All of it felt like living evidence of the man I had trusted completely. 2 days later, the mailman knocked and handed me a thick envelope sealed with a law firm's insignia. My heart tightened the moment I saw the name in the corner. I tore it open. Inside was a formal request for division of estate, filed by Laura's attorney. Michael's assets were listed coldly, a house valued at over $350,000, $205,000 in savings, plus several small investments. According to them, Ethan was entitled to half. I clutched the papers, rage flooding me. It wasn't just about money or property, these were the memories, the life Michael and I built. What they demanded was my entire existence. I stormed into the study, slammed the door, and for the first time since Michael's death, I screamed. The sound tore from me, raw with pain yet strangely freeing. I knew silence was no longer an option. If I gave in, all that would remain was humiliation. This fight was no longer just about property, it was about my dignity, about honoring the marriage that had once been real. I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, and searched my contacts for a name a college friend had once mentioned, a sharp inheritance lawyer. His name appeared clearly, David Clark, early 40s, known for his skill in family disputes. I inhaled deeply and dialed the number. The phone rang a few times, then a warm, steady voice answered. Clark Law Office. How can I help you? My voice trembled but carried steel beneath it. This is Emily. I need your help fighting my own sister. They're trying to take everything my husband left me. In that moment, I knew I had laid the first stone in a long, grueling battle. And this time, I would not let anyone trample on my dignity again. I sat in David Clark's small office, case files scattered across the desk. He patiently listened as I recounted everything: the birthday party, Laura's cruel accusations, and the legal papers demanding division of the estate. Just as I finished, my phone buzzed. My mother's name lit up the screen, and my heart sank. Reluctantly, I answered. On the other end, her voice shook. Emily, I want to talk. Don't rush this to court. Think of Ethan. He's just a child. I gripped the phone tight. Mom, why are you siding with Laura? How can you believe her lies? I braced for denial, but instead my father cut in, his tone heavy. We've known about this for a long time. Laura told us nearly a year before Michael's accident. The words cut like the final knife, severing my last thread of hope. You knew? While I was collapsing from grief, you sat beside me at the funeral, shedding tears, all the while hiding this truth. I broke down, crushed by betrayal. Mom's quiet reply came. Emily, you don't understand. Michael admitted it to Laura, and once Ethan was born, we couldn't doubt anymore. We stayed silent so you wouldn't be hurt further. I let out a bitter laugh. Not hurt? You let Laura humiliate me in front of 100 guests. You stood by while your own daughter was turned into a spectacle. No answer came. Just silence, followed by a sigh. My hand shook as I hung up. In that moment, I knew I had no family left to rely on. My parents had chosen Laura over me, truth or not. That evening, alone in the living room, I pulled out my wedding album. My smiling face next to Michael's, his loving eyes, our white dress and black suit, all now tainted by those who should have cherished those memories with me. Tears soaked the pages as I bent over the table. The next day, my father showed up at my door. He knocked for a long time until I reluctantly opened. Standing on the porch, his aged face etched with worry, he pleaded, "Emily, don't make this worse. Laura only wants security for her son. We're family, you can't take your sister to court." I stared at him, my voice ice cold. Family? What kind of family watches me collapse and says nothing? What kind of family helps steal the legacy my husband left? My control snapped, my voice rising into a shout. "From now on, don't call this a family. You chose to abandon me." He froze, lowered his head, and said nothing more. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the yard empty. I slammed the door shut, leaned against it, my heart pounding. I knew this was the final line. I had been cast out of my own family. The following day, Clark summoned me to his office. He placed a fresh file in front of me. "Laura and her lawyer have filed the official lawsuit. They have your parents as witnesses, along with the photos and messages." He looked at me evenly. "Your chance of winning isn't high if all you have is denial." I sat motionless, my mind spinning, yet deep inside, a flame sparked. I had nothing left to lose. I would not let Laura and my own parents strip away the truth, strip away the life Michael and I built. I lifted my head, voice steady. "If I have to, I'll fight to the end. I won't let them bury me under lies." Clark gave a small nod, a flicker of empathy in his eyes. "All right, then we prepare for war, but Emily, you'll have to be strong. They won't hesitate to attack your honor." I drew a long breath, wiping away my tears. Inside, a new resolve was rising. I had lost my husband, and now my family. But I still had myself, and this time, I wouldn't let anyone trample me again. A week after that heavy confrontation with my parents, I received a second envelope. The seal on it made my blood run cold. The law office representing Laura. I sat frozen at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and tore it open. Inside was a thick stack of documents, the opening line blunt. "Formal request for division of the estate of Michael Anderson." The list of assets was laid out coldly in bullet points. A suburban house valued at $350,000, $205,000 in savings, and a few small stock holdings. All of it was demanded to be split in half, with one portion placed under legal guardianship for Ethan, the child Laura so brazenly claimed as Michael's son. I clutched the papers, my throat tightening. The keepsakes of Michael and me, the home where we once planned to raise our children, were reduced to lifeless numbers on a page. I felt stripped bare before a family tribunal, viewed more as an obstacle than a person. That very night, I called David Clark. "I can't let them take everything. Will you stand with me?" My voice shook, but beneath it was steel. David replied firmly, "Emily, if you choose to fight, I'll be on your side. But you must be prepared. This will be a brutal battle. Laura has your parents' support and a pile of convincing evidence." The next day, I entered Clark's office with fear and resolve mingling in me. The scent of oak lingered, sunlight pouring across a long table stacked with documents. David spread out Laura's files, the photos she had flaunted at the party, printed message logs, even sworn statements from my own parents. "To be honest," David said evenly, "things don't look good right now. What they have could easily sway the court in Laura's favor. But we won't give up. We need to find a loophole. A truth powerful enough to flip this case." I sat silent, eyes fixed on the pile. My chest ached at the sight of those false words tying Michael's name to Laura like some secret romance. I wanted to shred every page, but instead clenched my fists to keep control. David raised his eyes to mine. "Are you certain Michael ever betrayed you? Did you ever suspect him?" I shook my head hard. "Never. Michael may have had flaws, but he loved me truly. I believe that." David nodded. Good. That belief will keep you going. But to convince the court, we need hard proof, not just conviction. That afternoon, as I left the office, my phone rang. It was my mother. I nearly ignored it, but answered at the last second. Her pleading voice spilled out, "Emily, don't drag this on. Just yield. Think of Ethan." A bitter laugh escaped me, tears stinging my eyes. "I lost my husband. Now you want me to lose my dignity and my home too? Don't bring Ethan up to me again. I'll fight to the end." I hung up, my hands trembling, but my heart blazing with a new fire. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at our wedding photos on the wall. In Michael's eyes, I found strength. He was gone, but I knew I had to hold the line for both of us. The next morning, I returned to David's office carrying a small cardboard box. Inside were mementos, Michael's old medical records, and even the infertility treatment notes I had hidden away. I set it on his desk, my voice steady. "I don't know if there's anything useful here, but find whatever you can to save the truth." David flipped through each file, his sharp gaze catching on details. His eyes narrowed with a sudden spark. "Emily, I think we have something, but it needs verification. Give me a few days." I nodded, nervous yet hopeful. For the first time in months, I no longer felt entirely alone. I had an ally now, and above all, I had made the decision that I would not let Laura's lies and my parents' silence bury me. The house was still quiet, the pain still present, but inside me another force had awakened, the strength of someone left with no choice but to fight back. That first meeting with David nearly drained me. He spread Laura's entire set of evidence across the desk. Photos of her and Michael at dinners, trips, message logs laced with intimacy, sworn statements from my parents admitting they had known all along. David looked at me, his voice calm but edged with gravity. "Emily, if the case rests only on this, the court will almost certainly lean toward Laura. You need to be prepared for the worst." I froze, my heart pounding. I had promised myself I'd stay strong, but hearing it from the sharpest lawyer I knew felt like plunging off a cliff. Clenching my fists, I whispered, "I can't lose. I don't believe Michael betrayed me. There has to be something we haven't seen yet." David nodded silently. His eyes showed he wanted to believe me too, but the law demanded proof, not faith. That night, I sat in the living room, the house dark except for the soft glow of a lamp. I stared at a photo of Michael smiling during our trip to the Grand Canyon 3 years ago, my throat tightening. I murmured as if speaking to him, "You could never have done this to me. There has to be another truth." The phone rang suddenly. The name on the screen made my chest seize. Margaret Anderson, Michael's mother, now in her 60s. Since the funeral, she had often texted to check on me, but this time her voice shook in a way I'd never heard. "Emily, I know the pressure you're under, but you cannot give up. There's something I've kept from you for many years, and it's time you know." I went still, my heart thudding. "What do you mean?" Silence lingered for a few seconds before she sighed. "When Michael was in college, he had a serious accident. Afterwards, doctors diagnosed severe damage. It left him infertile. His chance of fathering a child naturally was nearly zero. He and I promised to keep it secret, to protect his pride. He didn't even want you to know. He only feared it would hurt you." I went numb, tears spilling uncontrollably. Her words struck like lightning out of a clear sky. If Michael had been infertile all along, Laura's claim about Ethan was nothing but a cruel fabrication. Are you certain?" I stammered, barely able to breathe. Margaret's tone was gentle but firm. "I still have his medical records. Everything is there. If needed, I'll testify in court. Michael can't defend himself anymore, but I will defend his honor." I sobbed, clutching the phone to my chest. For the first time in months, light pierced through the suffocating darkness around me. The next morning, Margaret and I met David at his office. She placed a worn brown envelope on the desk. David carefully opened it to reveal pages of medical reports, a clear diagnosis. A zoospermia natural conception nearly impossible. He scanned each page, his eyes sharpening. This could change everything. If Michael was infertile, then that child cannot be his. Laura's photos and messages lose their weight instantly. I choked out. So we can win? David nodded, the faintest smile flickering across his stern face. It will still be tough, but now we hold the key. The challenge will be proving these records are genuine, not fabricated. Margaret laid her hand over mine, her voice trembling but resolute. Emily, Michael loved you. Don't let lies bury that love. I'll testify. I'm not afraid anymore. I gripped her hand tightly. For the first time since Michael's death, I didn't feel alone. I had David, I had Margaret, and I had the truth. That night, back home, I entered our bedroom. I opened the closet and pulled out a box of Michael's keepsakes, photos, letters, tokens of 15 years together. Holding them, I whispered, I promise I'll protect you. I'll expose every lie so they'll know you never betrayed me. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window. But this time, it didn't choke me. It sounded like a promise. After the storm, light always returns. The first day of trial arrived. I walked into the courtroom with David and my mother-in-law, Margaret. The room was large, paneled in dark wood, every bench filled relatives, neighbors, even strangers, drawn as if to a performance. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, though inside I shook endlessly. Across the aisle, Laura sat, radiating false confidence. She wore a plain black dress, her makeup faint, dabbing at fake tears from time to time. Beside her, her attorney whispered constantly, his face smug. My parents sat just behind Laura, their eyes cast down to avoid mine. Their silence stung like a slap. The hearing began. Laura's lawyer rose and spun his story as if it were unquestionable fact. A secret love affair, a child born of forbidden passion, and my supposed selfishness in clinging to the entire estate. Each word cut into me, and I felt the pitying stares of those in the gallery. When our turn came, David stood, his voice clear but calm. Your Honor, we hold decisive evidence that can overturn the plaintiff's entire claim. He placed a thick file before the judge. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. These are the official medical records of Mr. Michael Anderson, compiled when he was a college student following a severe car accident. They clearly state he suffered permanent damage and was diagnosed infertile, with virtually no chance of natural conception. The words struck the room like thunder. I glanced at Laura, her face drained white, her hands clutching her skirt. Whispers buzzed everywhere. Laura's lawyer shot up. This could be fabricated. Nothing proves these records are authentic. David stayed steady. If necessary, we welcome full verification of their authenticity. And to end any dispute, we formally request a DNA test. Let us not argue with words, let science decide. The judge frowned, tapping the gavel. A DNA test is reasonable, but with Mr. Anderson cremated, how can comparison be done? David turned, signaling Margaret. She rose and stepped forward with quiet dignity, her eyes resolute. I am Michael's biological mother. Take my sample. If Ethan is truly Michael's son, it will show in the results. The room fell silent. Laura's eyes widened, her lips trembling. No, there's no need. That will only make things worse. But no one believed her anymore. The judge struck the gavel again, approving the DNA request. I looked at Margaret, her eyes blazing with strength. In that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. She was fighting beside me to protect Michael's honor. The 3-week wait felt like a year. By day, I worked with David to prepare every angle. By night, I clutched our wedding photo, praying the truth would hold. Laura's unusual silence told me she was afraid. When the results day came, the courtroom was packed once more. I sat beside Margaret, her hand gripping mine, steadying me. The judge opened the file, voice solemn, based on DNA samples from Mrs. Margaret Anderson and the child, Ethan. The analysis shows no biological relationship between grandmother and grandson. Therefore, Mr. Michael Anderson cannot be the child's father. The room erupted, gasps, murmurs everywhere. I heard my mother's muffled sob, my father's head bowing low. Laura sat frozen, pale, shaking her head. No, no, this must be a mistake. David rose calmly. Your Honor, science has spoken. Everything the plaintiff presented was deceit. The judge struck the gavel firmly. The court rejects all claims for division of assets. Full legal ownership remains with Mrs. Emily Anderson. Tears burst from me, tears of release. After months of humiliation, truth had prevailed. Michael had never betrayed me, and his honor was restored. Stepping out of the courthouse, the autumn air was cold, but I breathed easier than I had in months. Margaret squeezed my hand and asked softly, "Are you all right?" Through tears, I smiled. "I'm all right, Mom. This time, I really am." The courtroom doors closed behind me, and I stood still on the courthouse steps. The autumn wind whipped my hair, but inside I felt lighter than I had in months. The judge's final ruling had confirmed the truth. Michael had never betrayed me, and that child had nothing to do with him. My parents rushed toward me, their faces stricken. My mother burst into tears, clutching my sleeve. "Emily, I'm sorry. Laura deceived us. Please forgive us." My father added in a strained voice, "We only wanted to protect the child. We never meant to hurt you." I pulled my arm back, my eyes cold. "Never meant to?" While I collapsed from grief, you chose Laura's side. You stayed silent as she humiliated me in front of everyone. Don't tell me it was for my good. Tears slid down my cheeks, but my voice was firm. From today on, I am no longer your daughter. I turned away, leaving them frozen behind me. I felt no regret. I had lost my blood family, but it was the price of reclaiming the truth. Days later, Margaret and I began clearing the suburban house. As I walked through each room, memories of Michael lingered in the walls. At times, my heart clenched, but instead of despair, I felt release. I decided I couldn't keep living within those walls of sorrow. One evening, sitting with Margaret in the living room, I spoke quietly. "Mom, the downtown apartment Michael left. I can't keep it. Too many memories suffocate me. If you accept it, let this be my gift to thank you for defending the truth." She looked stunned, eyes glistening. "Emily, I can't take such a gift." I held her hand. "You gave me faith when I was about to fall apart. Without you, I couldn't have fought Laura. Please accept it as my way of starting over." Margaret went silent, then pulled me into her arms. She whispered, "You've never been just a daughter-in-law. You're my daughter." From then on, we became as close as real mother and child. Every weekend, we shared dinners, visited museums, or strolled in the park. She told me stories of Michael's childhood, when he crashed his bike, when he skipped school to fish. Listening, I felt Michael still near, no longer a bleeding wound but a cherished memory. Laura vanished from town after losing the case. Rumors said she sold her house and left with her son. My parents sent letters begging to meet, but I tore them up unopened. I had no space left for toxic ties. Work slowly settled back into rhythm. I returned to my architecture firm and took on a new project in Denver. At first, colleagues eyed me curiously, but they soon saw my dedication. On late afternoons, standing at the site watching the sun dip behind the mountains, peace washed over me. Some nights, I wrote in my journal, not about pain, but about what I'd learned. Sometimes, blood family betrays, while true kinship comes from unexpected places. For me, Margaret was my real family. 6 months later, I looked in the mirror and saw a different Emily. No longer the widow crushed by betrayal, no longer the daughter abandoned by her parents. I was a woman who had stood firm through the storm, who had found peace in her own choices. One morning over coffee, Margaret smiled at me warmly. You know, Michael must be so proud. You didn't let anyone stain his honor, and you found yourself again. I smiled back, warmth filling my heart. For the first time in months, I felt truly happy. I had lost much, but I had regained what mattered most: freedom, dignity, and a family worthy of my love. Emily's story reminds me that in real life, blood doesn't always mean family. Betrayed by her sister and abandoned by her parents, she thought she had lost everything. Yet with resilience and her mother-in-law's love, Emily reclaimed justice and began anew. Many people know the pain of being deceived, overlooked, or cast aside by their own families. The lesson here is to set boundaries, hold on to the truth, and seek a family that truly values you. What do you think about Emily's journey from the grief of losing her husband to finding justice and a true family? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.